what's it called again? The line that
the mediastinum.
Mediastinum.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I wish we could like have
incredible.
an animal in here with a bunch of guys around or something and go through it. I mean, that would be the best thing. It's like to show that there's no dead space.
Right.
It's not there.
There's not. And people can look that up. Like that information is readily available. You're a Google search away from being able to see the truth of this.
Yeah.
Or you can do a thought experiment and visualize how lungs must work.
Yeah.
But like we started talking about, it's really hard to convince somebody of something that they already believe.
Yeah.
You can show them, like in real time, they still can't understand.
Yeah. I don't think people want to admit that they didn't make a great shot.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to justify it.
Yeah. These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. A hot drink can become cool in two primary ways, through conduction and convection. Conduction occurs when two objects touch each other. Imagine holding a piece of ice. Before long, your fingers are cold and the ice begins to melt. That's conduction. Convection occurs when a gas or liquid moves from being different temperatures. When you heat water over a stove, the warm water moves up and the cool water moves down. That's what you're seeing when water boils, and that's convection. A stainless vacuum bottle prevents conduction from occurring by creating a void between the walls of the bottle, thermos, or cup and the outside air. It prevents convection by keeping all the liquid inside at the same temperature. That's how a Stanley product keeps your cold drink cold and your hot drink hot. And they've been doing it for 110 years. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Stanley 1913, and you can check out their new and classic line of products at stanley1913.com. Those divers are, they're fast.
Yeah.
You know, we're so used to mallards around here, and you kind of just aim right at them, and those divers come through, and it's a different game.
Yeah. I grew up on hunting Puget Sound, so we had mixed bag of everything over there.
So were you born up there?
Yeah, I was born in Everett.
Okay. And then did you start hunting at an early age?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad duck hunted for years, so I started 12 or whenever you could legally start.
Yeah.
We always shot stuff before that, but yeah. Started with hunting dinky blacktails on Orcas Island and kind of kept migrating. I loved to fish when I was younger. Now I still fish some, but it's definitely the hunting is my thing now.
When did you start taking bow hunting seriously?
In vet school. Actually, a buddy of mine, his wife was a year ahead of me in vet school, and we just kind of met at a function. It was my sophomore year, I think. We met, and we just hit it right off. We were chucker hunting down in the canyons and pheasant hunting, what little pheasants we could find, but got me into bow hunting. He was telling all these fun stories about it. So we shot, I shot more that summer than I ever shot in my entire life.
Really?
And we were scouting from like June on, they're just starting to get their velvet. There were like 6 5-point plus bucks in the stretch of river we had permission to hunt. So we were watching them all summer, drooling all summer. And then finally, like season hits and they disappear.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ended up getting my first archery buck, big 5x5 whitetail. It was super cool. I
Really?
was so stoked. Oh, yeah.
Got him that year?
Yeah.
So you were hooked.
Oh, I was hardcore hooked. Yeah. Yeah. I exclusively bow hunted for many years after that. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
What year would that have been?
92.
92. So
an old high country.
Yeah.
Louder than snot bow.
Yeah, bows were just starting to change a lot at that time, I feel like.
Oh, they were round wheel.
Yeah.
Loud. If you didn't hang on tight, it'd jump out of your hand. And,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because right after that, Matthew started showing up and, bows started getting faster and more comfortable to shoot and quieter. And, every year they make a little bit of improvement. But, that was the time period where it's starting to change a lot. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. 40 was a really long shot back then.
It still is.
It's still a long shot, but it's like with equipment now, I mean, you can dial in. I mean, I'm very selective on my hunting shots.
Right.
But practice, I mean, fling 70, 80 yards.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Have fun, and you're dialed, but that's in perfect scenario too. So
yeah. I find that my ability to shoot a bow, when I'm shooting well, when, you know, my mind's right, my equipment's right and everything, my accuracy out to 100 yards is really similar to what it would be if I was shooting a rifle offhand.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of change between those two things. Yeah. And, you know, the big difference is that with a bow on some of these longer shots, you have time of flight.
And wind.
And wind. Huge. Yeah. You don't have a static target either.
Right.
And they can hear that arrow coming towards them. They can hear that bow going off. Chances are your target is not going to be where it was when you allowed that arrow to start moving off the string.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're moving or alert at all.
Yeah. Where did you go to vet school?
Washington State University.
Okay.
Yep. Graduated in 94.
You've been a vet.
Been a few years, yeah.
Been a vet for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate to have the Double Arrow Vet Clinic here because it's a small community. We're big in our numbers of animals, but there's only, like 7,000 people in a county that's bigger than Connecticut.
Yeah.
So we have, is there 60,000 cows in the county?
Last I heard, used to be 40,000. I'm not sure exact numbers now, but they definitely outnumber us.
A lot more cows than people. Yeah. So you do small animal, you do large animal, and you're a tremendous veterinarian, and Dave is too, and now your daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
my
cool
daughter's
is that?
been working with us for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
She grew up going on calls with me.
Sure.
Blood and guts and stuff.
Yeah.
And she's just loved it the whole way through and had her mind on it, and she did it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing working with her, and she's, I might be a little biased, but she's really good.
She is good.
She's so good.
Yeah. She's got little tricks that I've never seen before, and she does really, really well. She loves animals. Animals love her.
Yeah. And she loves the people associated with them, which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much of the job is just managing people?
Oh, as a veterinarian?
Yeah.
Oh, a ton of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I got my animal patients.
Right.
But there's a person attached to every one.
Yeah.
And, there's varying degrees of bondedness. There's a lot of the cattle, a lot of it's financial. Is it economical to treat or not? Or,
sure.
The pets, sometimes the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
They're family members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Oh, yeah.
And
I do too.
Yeah. You've saved multiple dogs that I've owned, and I love those dogs more than I love anyone. Yeah, I have a really close relationship with my dogs, and they're incredibly important to me. And to take an animal that's hurt or sick or whatever to you guys, it feels both helpless and hopeful, because I know that they're going to get just the best care that they could get anywhere with you guys, and that's why I think we're so fortunate to have you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now, you have a pretty heroic dog. Don't you have a dog that's donated blood a lot?
I lost her a few years ago.
Did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Her name was Meg.
Yeah.
Black Lab, one of my hunting buddy.
Yeah.
That she lived 12 years, and I think she donated blood 13 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she saved dogs' lives 13 times.
Yeah.
That's
there were some that, it wasn't enough.
Sure.
But there's a lot of dogs walking around with a little Meg blood in her. Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I feel like, and maybe this isn't the case, but I feel like if I took, my dog to a vet and it needed a blood transfusion in a big city, that vet probably wouldn't run home and grab his dog and come back and use that dog for a blood transfusion.
Yeah. Probably not as likely. Yeah. Yeah. I actually, in vet school, I worked in a blood transfusion lab.
Okay.
So I got a lot of extra experience there and working with blood components and stuff.
Gotcha.
And we had a bunch of greyhounds at the school that were our donor pool.
Huh.
So we'd vaccinate and they'd blood test and type and all that stuff. And, in our emergency situations, I'll do they call it a major cross match, just to make sure, we're not going to kill off all the red blood cells, make sure it's going to work. But emergency situation, you do what you got to do. And it more often than not works.
Yeah. Do dogs have blood types?
Yeah.
Same as us?
No, they're different.
Okay.
Not as many.
Not as many.
Actually, I did a blood transfusion on a calf one time.
Really?
Yeah. Mama stepped on its umbilical cord right when it was first born, and it tore it, and like kid was laying in a pool of blood.
Oh, no.
They bring it in, and it's cold, and it's weak. So I had them bring the mama cow in. I figured it's going to be the closest thing I could get. Drew blood out, pulled blood out of the mama, transfused it, and that baby was up nursing in an hour. It was the coolest things ever.
Really?
It's like the one and only cow blood transfusion I've ever done. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So creativity is a big part of the job as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially mixed animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often are you having to work on or getting to work on wildlife instead of domestic animals?
Not a lot. I mean, we get a lot of hit by cars and birds hit wires and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to me. I just don't know a lot of the specifics. I don't do enough of it to get really good at it. So a lot of times we'll stabilize them. There's not a couple hours away. Pendleton's got a rehab place there. We send a lot over that way. But
okay,
yeah, some of the coolest ones had a great horned owl that passed away, but examining its eyes, unbelievable. It's like in another world in there. They're crazy night vision.
Tell me about that. Like when you're looking at a great horned owl's eye, what are you seeing in there that is so interesting, that's so different from another bird's eye?
Well, for the size of the animal, their eyeball is huge.
Okay.
And they have the back of the eye is a retina, and they have called it tapetum, is what that reflective, when your headlights or whatever, the glowing eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, that reflection helps to gather more light and focus it for that night vision. Unbelievable amount of that reflective back there.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I can't really describe it very well, but
owls are an amazing animal.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much about them that lets them stand alone. The fact that they don't make any sound when they're flying.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, we've tried pretty hard in the military to create things that fly without making sound, and we haven't pulled it off. Our best thing that we can do is like put it so far up in the atmosphere that nobody can hope to hear it.
Yeah. Well, I think the engine is a big problem there.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
But an owl has an engine of sorts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so much more efficient. And then, their ability to turn their head, of course, is pretty amazing. How do they pull that off?
I don't know on that one. There's supposed to be, yoga moves or what. I don't know what they do.
Sure.
But it's like
Do they have extra bones or fewer bones? Or
I think they have the same number of cervical vertebrae, but way better flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love out hunting, and I'll sit there and mouth squeak and kind of get them to ride over, and it's like nothing, dead silent. It's so cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
No, I've had them sneak up on me, especially if I'm calling coyotes at night.
Yeah.
I'll always get covered up in owls, and you look around and there's one like sitting next to you. It's like, oh, how did you get here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had
pretty amazing.
Had a golden eagle one time that got, I forget what, busted wing or something anyway. And so I put my leather welding glove we have for fractious cats at the clinic. I put it on. That bird grabs a hold, and I'm like, oh Lord, please let my glove hold up. I mean, it was a squeeze, and any second I thought talons were going to just go to my bone.
Yeah.
They were crazy. And he's, I'm trying to get him away from my face. He's eye to eye to me, and it was pretty intimidating.
I think a golden eagle's grip is around 2,000 psi.
It was crazy.
Yeah. And
I don't think he was trying very hard.
Right. And to compare that with the human, I think we're like a 130 to 150 for a healthy male that's working out a lot.
Yeah.
It's so incredible. One of the things I found interesting when I was doing a mountain lion podcast with Derek Broman is he said that a mountain lion's canines are the correct width to split vertebrae.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I wonder about avian predators like owls and raptors and stuff, like if the distance between their claws is maybe built for about the same thing.
Yeah.
Because eagles kill a lot of large vertebrates.
Oh, yeah.
And, more often than not, they're doing it with their grip strength, either by suffocating that animal or by breaking its spine.
Yeah.
So amazing. Those Mongolians that are hunting wolves with eagles, I think a lot of people have seen those videos. They're primarily paralyzing them, breaking their back with their grip strength.
Yeah. I was in Mongolia for a couple stints doing some cattle work over there, kind of education over that way. And got to see. I mean, it was kind of the roadside tourist attraction thing, but it's like we got to swing in and see these. They're good sized birds.
Yeah.
Their wolves are not very big apparently, but
right.
we didn't get to see any of those. But yeah, the Mongolians, they were out in their gears, and I was doing these different discussions, and they found out I was a hunter, and they're like, "You need to bring your rifle.
Yeah,
we need some help here." Yeah.
So was it wolf predation that was causing them problems? Or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They range out during the day, but at night, most everything is in an enclosure, so they can keep them close from the predators. Yeah.
Interesting.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a huge amount of work out there on that massive steppe. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, incredible people.
Yeah.
Super incredible people.
They have that Merrill stag, that version of the Rocky Mountain elk, and I want to hunt those things so bad. They look so cool.
Yeah, we were up at, I think it's Salenga province. It's up north. It's borders the Russian border. We got to go up near the Russian border. I wasn't a citizen there, so they wouldn't let me very close, but we kind of took a trail and looked over into Russia, and it looks, a lot of the country looks like here.
Sure.
Nice green valley, of course, the time of year we were at, but a few trees around, and I was doing a lot of running at the time, so we'd stop at a place, and I'm looking for a place to go running, so I'd run into the top of some of these, they're hills. They call them mountains, but they're hills for us, and every one of those had like a prayer flags and little thing at the top of every one. So I'm this goofball. I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
I'd sleep for a few hours, and I'm just wired.
Yeah.
So I'm up running around, top to top, and some of the herders are bringing their animals out, looking at me like I'm an alien or something. Yeah, I had a great time over there.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's super cool. Well, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about with you today is, given your extensive knowledge about animals and then your extensive experience with bow hunting, I wanted to get into some of the myths and old wives' tales and facts about archery lethality. And a lot of this is controversial for no good reason. But
non-factual,
yeah. People get stuff in their mind, especially about shot placement, and it's almost impossible to convince them otherwise. And I've even had people standing there while I'm cleaning their elk and say, "Look, this is where you hit, and these are the organs that your arrow went through." And they're like, "Well, that can't be." Like,
open your eyes.
We're looking at it. Yeah. This is what happened. Like, well, that's not how I remember it. Well, that can be true.
Yeah, adrenaline does crazy stuff.
Yes. Yeah. We don't remember things well. So I'm never going to argue with somebody that they remembered something differently than how it was. Mm-hmm. But we need to be able to update our information based off of what we're seeing and off what we're learning so that we can improve. It's not a judgment. It's not a criticism. It's like, hey, this is what it is. Let's try to do better next time.
Yep.
So the first one that I want to talk about is the myth of the dead zone.
I knew you could call that one. that drives me nuts. I've autopsied so many animals, and granted, it's different when you've stuck a bullet or an arrow in a lung.
Yep.
The lungs deflate.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't understand that. They don't get to see an untouched chest
that
you go into. You cut into it and you hear the air sucking in.
Yeah.
So there's no dead space. Short story. There's no dead space.
Okay.
So basically, what I hear people talking about it like it's an empty sack. Your lungs are an empty sack that when you breathe in, the sack magically fills up.
Yep.
And when you breathe out, it deflates. So there's like extra space in there. That is not at all the case. There's no external force forcing air into your lungs. I don't care how fast you run. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So you're relying on, so there's actually around the lungs, basically sticking it kind of to the wall is vacuum. So you've got this negative pressure. So your lungs moving brings a little bit of air in, but your diaphragm is the big one.
So, and when you say lungs moving, you mean the rib cage?
Rib cage, yeah. The muscular part of that, moving your ribs, will bring a little bit of air in, but we would pass out if we didn't have a diaphragm.
Okay.
We couldn't move enough air.
So my understanding is that there's a fluid between the lung and the inside wall of the ribs.
Yep, pleural fluid.
Pleural fluid.
Yep.
And that occupies what we call pleural space. Is
Yeah,
that right?
But it's a minimal amount of fluid.
Minimal amount.
I mean, when we do an autopsy on a cow, you can see a little fluid in there, but it's not like a half gallon. I mean, it's just a tiny amount.
But it doesn't take much,
no,
right?
it doesn't. And it's just a lubricating, because your lungs have to be able to move as they're, inflating, deflating basically, and sliding along. They have to be lubricated.
Okay.
So that's why the fluid's there.
So let's just use a bull elk, for example. If a bull elk has just given out a big long bugle and he's exhaled everything that he possibly can, basically his diaphragm has moved towards his face, towards the front.
Yeah.
So his lungs are as small as they're possibly going to be at that point, but it's mostly front to back that they've shrunk, not top to bottom.
Yeah, they don't go top to bottom much at all.
Right.
Front to back a lot, and sideways some as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from the archer's perspective, let's say we're taking, an ethical shot, meaning broadside or something close to that. The size of the lungs hasn't significantly changed. Like our target size has not significantly changed, whether he's breathed out or breathed in.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit, but if you're relying on that very back end lung shot, that's not a good thing to rely on. Yeah. So you want to be tucked up higher. As an archer, we're cutting vessels.
Yeah.
The bigger the vessels, the faster that animal's going down.
Okay.
So I want to hit aorta.
Yep.
That's what I'm shooting for. I mean, I'm aiming for that center mass aorta.
Yeah. It's top of the heart.
Top of the heart.
Yeah. That's what I like too. So what are some reference points on the animal that allow you to see where that's going to be? We talk about picking a spot, picking a hair. How are you referencing that?
Yeah. Now, I mean, when I see an animal, I see 3D anatomy.
Sure.
I've done it so much. When I was started out, I wasn't that good at it.
Yeah.
That crease of the shoulder is a good one. Elbow, straight up from the elbow.
Yep.
A lot of people really want to drift that area back. They're afraid of the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I've hit a shoulder on a cow elk, 20 yards, and it didn't do her in. I was early in my career, and I learned the lesson of elk heavy bone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure we're back, but not too far back.
Yeah.
Liver shots work, but they can go a long way, especially elk.
Yeah.
They're so tough.
So what have you seen? Are there any rules of thumb that you can throw out there for a liver shot, and how long an animal can live off that?
Well, I've 6-8 hours plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had liver shots on deer that I tracked them around. I let them sit for 2 hours because I wasn't sure of the shot. And this is, again, early in my career. I know better now. Yeah, let them sit for a couple hours. I go sneaking in on things and bump them. And it's back off till the next morning, and you find them. But they go a long ways. And that first bed is by far your best. If you can leave them in there extra long, let them be comfortable, and just sit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So when an animal dies from an arrow to the liver, what is it actually dying from?
Oh, it's hemorrhaging. Yeah, they're bleeding out.
Okay. So still exsanguination.
Yep. But the liver doesn't have, it's a filter, so it's blood coming back through the liver to be filtered and go into the heart. So it's not high pressure. Aorta is the highest pressure you've got. Aorta and carotids are your high pressure. Your venous side is slower bleed, and the liver has, if anyone's cut a liver, it's just lots of little vessels. There are some big ones in the very center, but again, they're pretty much classified as vein pressure.
Okay.
So they're a lot slower bleed.
That makes sense.
Effective but slow.
Tension pneumothorax is something that some archers talk about occurring, and I actually haven't seen a lot of it. So we're talking about lungs deflating and, introducing air to that pleural space between the lungs and the inside of the ribs. And once that air gets in there, then theoretically more can get in and the lungs can deflate. And because they're not sticking to the side of the ribs anymore, they can't inflate and deflate anymore.
Yeah. You talking one lung or two?
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference.
Okay, so talk me through that.
So ruminants have, we all have it's called a mediastinum. It's basically like a divider between your left and your right side of your lungs.
Okay.
Humans are weak. We all know that. If you puncture one side, it's going to collapse one side bad and the other side pretty seriously as well. It'll collapse both.
Okay.
Ruminants, so cattle is what I'm most familiar with. You can pop air into one lung, they're fine on the other side. It's a really strong mediastinum that will hold up. Elk are the same way. I mean, I've seen elk shot and, just clip a lung, they're gone.
Interesting.
Yeah. Unless they bleed out.
Yeah.
They're going to recover from that one.
Wow.
If they get the arrow out. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Okay, so that makes me think that getting a pass-through is more important than ever. Like, I didn't know that was the thing. I knew that one-lungers live for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't understand to that extent. So getting a pass-through is critical.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, the most critical is slicing big vessels.
Yeah.
That's the number one.
Okay.
So that center mass, you get an arrow there, you could put a broadhead in there if it cuts the right stuff. Or, a field point or whatever. You poke the right thing, they're going down. Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about sharpness a little bit. I have heard that a dull blade causes more damage when it cuts, and that because of the more damage that it's causing, more clotting agents can go to that area and it can stop a little bit better. So people have said that
were they beating their broadheads with a hammer before season or what?
Well, no. I'm talking more along the lines of like, let's say you were to cut the back of your hand with a fresh scalpel and then, an old pocket knife. Like, which one would bleed more? And a lot of people say that the sharp cut bleeds a lot more because there's less damage to the area, which is why like little razor nicks and stuff like that bleed so much.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that?
On a microscopic level, yeah, if you're going to have like a more abrasive or a more shredding type cut, it's going to be a little bit more damage. But I want cut, I want deep, I want through.
Right.
I want as much cutting as I can get. I go sharp.
Okay.
I'm still a fan. I like my Montec. I mean, they're a solid head.
Mm-hmm.
I was dinking around. Had a spike elk in at like 20 yards. I'm going to try a heart shot at this range. It's point blank range. Well, he moved a little bit, and I hammered his elbow.
Mm-hmm.
I heard this whack, and he went about 30 yards, tipped over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what was that? Well, I blew his elbow to pieces, and the broadhead stuck in his heart. And the heart is what did it, but the broadhead, I mean, it wasn't bent at all.
Wow. And
it blew me away that those solid heads, I've been sold on those things now. Yeah. I've tried some expandables when they're legal in Oregon here, and I mean, they work, but I wasn't impressed. I've bending blades, and on elk size especially, it's like, I know guys hunt them, love them. I'm just not that comfortable with them. I know the anatomy and those heavy bones, and I want something to pile drive through them if I can get it.
And ribs on a bull elk are no joke either.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So the reason that I'm talking about sharpness is a lot of what a broadhead has to do is, first of all, it has to fly through the air correctly. Mm-hmm. And if you have a broadhead that's not in line with the rest of your arrow, that's not going to happen. So, yes, we've got to deliver it to the target, and sometimes you need some broadhead tuning or some bow tuning to make sure that you're getting good flight with your broadheads. And practicing with your broadheads is no fun. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's not any fun, and it's expensive. It sucks. We don't want to do it. Yeah. We do it like 4 times. You're like, good enough, which is unfortunate. But we get through that. It flew through the air. It hit two-dimensionally where we want to on the animal. But now it's got to do something pretty awful, which is to cut through muddy, coarse hair.
Mm-hmm.
And
hide.
Yeah, and then hide after that. But if you want to take your favorite hunting knife and wreck it really quickly, just cut through a bunch of muddy elk hair.
Yeah.
You know, there's very few knives that can survive that at all.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we're asking this broadhead to do, and then get through the hide, and then get through these rib bones or some other bone. And now it has to really perform its task of cutting blood vessels. And we want it to be as sharp as possible when it's doing that, because it's going to continue penetrating through that other side if it is. So if you have any weakness in your broadhead, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially on elk size game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had, deer. I mean, deer can be tough, no doubt, physically tough, but I've busted through shoulder blades and spines, and it puts them down. If you hit a good spot, they're going down.
Yeah.
Elk are not that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to have a really good shot placement for that to work.
What are some other things that you've heard people talk about with archery hunting with elk that you just shake your head and say that's wrong, and I wish you could?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the arrow going in. I think the angle is huge on some of these broadhead designs. You got to have something that's cut on impact.
Okay.
Cutting point. Yeah. Yeah. Even those the solid points I use. I mean, that tip, it'll poke a hole in you.
Yep.
If you're just messing around. You've got to get that little hook, get that little thing into the skin for it to start cutting. Some of these, if you had a little bit of I dropped it on the ground and it's got a little tweak at the tip, those things can glance.
Yep.
Wrong angles. I've had a elk at a pretty good angle. I had, quartering away, but it was pretty steep, hit a rib and went up. I mean, I caught one lung. I tracked that sucker for 2 miles, across a mountain. I finally caught up and got another arrow in him, but that was no fun.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's like I should have been a little more patient, wait for him to turn a little more. And that was early in my career too. It's like you get impatient. You're in range. You got to make it happen quick before something bad happens. And, with wind and stuff in the mountains, that's a reality. But waiting for that right shot is just so huge. I got way more patience now than I used to have.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed a lot in the last few years of guiding is that people can't very well identify what broadside looks like. There's a lot of angles that they think are broadside, and then I'll ask them, be like, how was that elk standing when you shot it? Broadside, perfectly broadside. And man, if they're looking back towards you, they can be facing almost dead away and look like they're broadside to people.
Yeah, they're big. They're huge.
They're big. And then when they turn like that, when they're just about facing away from you, heavily quartered away, and they turn and look back, that shoulder turns and that big neck comes around, and it looks like, I just need to sink it behind the shoulder, and that's not it.
No.
You almost have to be shooting them in the hip in order to get into their lungs at that point, and that's not a good shot.
No, it's a very small area. If you hit hip bone, they're not. You're not getting them.
No
way.
And then if you're trying to drive through their stomachs, especially if they're full of rumen, man, you're asking that.
That's almost like shooting ballistic gel.
Yeah.
That rumen full of grass and things. Yeah.
You're asking your arrow to drive through a lot of really tough real estate before it gets to anything that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to me about ruminants, the stomachs on a cloven hoofed animal.
So multiple stomachs, big rumen. That's basically just a storage area. Okay. They chew grass. It sits in there. It's not acidic at all. It just kind of, there's a lot of bacteria. There's a lot of protozoa in there to help break down a lot of the cellulose in there. And they call them ruminants because they ruminate, where they burp some up and they chew their cud, and then they put it, swallow it back down again. Then the other stomachs, break down further, and it's called an abomasum. It's the last stomach. That is more like our stomach.
Okay.
Where it starts, real fine particulates, then it goes on into digestion. But when we're in, most of my experience with cattle, so when we're feeding cattle, we're actually feeding the bugs. We're not feeding the animal. We're feeding the bugs in there. So all these things we're putting in, they're breaking down to feed the bugs, and the bugs are actually breaking down the feed to supply nutrients to that animal.
So by bugs, you're talking about like the microbiome?
Yeah, the protozoa and bacteria. And,
wow.
Yeah, and dairies are, they frighten me, honestly.
Really?
They push the feed on these. I mean, it's an amazing science.
Yeah.
I just don't know enough about it to be smart about it at all.
Yeah.
But they're pushing to get maximum milk production, and they're feeding on the edge. I mean, one little tip with one thing off, and you can kill animals. I mean, it's amazing. Beef cattle, I still see problems with it, but we're not trying to push them as hard.
Yeah.
On that aspect, but we'll still see. You make a major feed change, and the bugs in the stomach can't handle it, and they'll bloat up and die or have all sorts of problems. So they're amazing animals.
So, knowing that the microbiome is so important on these animals, how does that change like the stuff that you're choosing for your own nutrition?
My own nutrition?
Yeah, like when you're eating stuff, are you thinking about, I'm just feeding the bugs that are inside my body?
No, we're different.
Okay.
I mean, but I do try to watch what it goes in my body for sure. Yeah, especially as I get older.
Yeah.
I'm not as forgiving as I used to be. In high school, I had like a milkshake and an apple pie for lunch, and I'd go swim and do all these competitions. It would kill me now.
Yeah. Yeah. You were just in the helping out with the sled dog race.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. We've got an Iditarod qualifier here.
Yeah, it's the Eagle Cap Extreme. This is our 18th year running it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it had been going that long.
2005 was the first race.
Yeah. It's hard to think about 2005 as 18 years ago. I think that's my big problem.
You're getting old, yeah. So it's an Iditarod and Yukon Quest qualifying race.
Okay.
The two biggest races in Alaska.
Yeah.
Iditarod's 1,049 miles, and Yukon Quest actually they just changed. U.S. and Canada had some disagreements of some sort. So there's a Canadian Yukon Quest, and there's Alaska Quest or Yukon Quest Alaska, something like that. So it's only 515 miles now, but brutal, cold, and it's crazy country.
Yeah.
So as being a qualifier is quite a thing for us to have in our back door here.
Yeah. So how did it go?
Went really well.
Yeah.
We had 17 teams. We're down a little bit. A lot of people just couldn't get mileage in. They didn't have the snow and to get the miles in. This is a pretty early race in the sled dog season. But first year we've never had any mushers scratch.
Okay.
Everybody started, finished.
That's great.
So, we were really, really impressed.
How are the snow conditions?
They were really good.
Is it fast?
Yeah, we had that. We had snow early, and then it kind of warmed up on us, and so it kind of got things a little icy. But we had 6 or 8 new inches of snow on top of it for padding, and the mushers it was fast course.
Who won?
Let's see, in the 200 miler, Josie Thayer from Idaho. She's actually moving to Alaska here pretty soon.
Okay.
100 miler, Nicole Lombardi won, and then we have a shorter race. So there's 200 mile race, which is a qualifying race.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 100 miler, then we have a 31 mile. They run 2 days back to back, and Charlotte Souse won that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And we got Jed Stevenson. He was second in the 200. He's running the Iditarod this year, so he's got a lot of Wallowa County fans cheering him on for that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great. The first year that I remember watching all the vet checks before the dogs went out, because all the dogs come through town and get an inspection, right?
Yeah. Our veterinary team. We've got Dr. Kathleen McGill. She was head vet on the Quest for years. She's worked the Iditarod a bunch. I mean, super experienced. She leads our vet team. We had five vets this year. Cool. We in the morning we check an Enterprise, in the afternoon in Joseph, just for community support. We had a bunch of kids come down and get to pet some of the nice dogs. There's some not nice ones that they keep in the boxes,
sure.
and we have mushers. Mushers are really good about they understand it's a meet and greet.
Yeah. So
and it's pretty low key. They're able to give different presentations to the schools, and we send one team down. So Morgan Anderson,
mm-hmm.
our local girl here, she and her dad, who also ran this year, they went down to Wallowa and gave a presentation there. It was just harder for them to bus up and back and forth, so we sent somebody down there. So all the county schools, major ones here, get to see the dogs, see the mushers. Yeah.
I think what a lot of people would imagine as a sled dog is like a Siberian Husky.
Yeah,
and
big, beefy, fluffy.
That's not at all the case.
Not at all the case. No.
So what are these things?
So these things, most of them are Alaskan Huskies,
Okay.
which basically is crossbred for running dogs.
Yep.
They have a good hair coat for the cold, but they are lean machines. I mean, I hear that a lot I thought they'd be bigger, and it's like, these are marathon runners.
Right.
You don't see many guys like me running marathons consistently fast.
Yeah.
I'm just not built for it. And these dogs are built for running fast, and they can even cover a distance. They're not the best dogs for heavy weight pull. That's what we're thinking of, the old time freight dogs that were the trappers are packing hundreds of pounds of gear different places. You need slow, strong dogs for that. We've had a few teams over the years. We had some Siberian Huskies, and they're good pullers, but they're like the same speed uphill, same speed downhill. Yeah. And we had one group of Malamutes, which gorgeous dogs, big fluffy, the classic look, but they were tail enders at the race.
Yeah.
They did well, but for them, but
yeah,
they just can't compete.
Sure. Different tool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like your truck versus your Ferrari.
Yeah. What kind of stuff are mushers carrying with them to help their dogs if their dogs get injured?
They have a basic first aid kit that, in there they'll go for the humans and the dogs. We have a vet checkpoint down at Ollicott Campground. It's a remote checkpoint. We have to snowmobile in about 7 miles. All our gear. We got wall tents and stoves and food and all the gear. Straw for the teams to lay on. It's a big production to get all that in there. And we have, as a vet team, I've got totes, 3 totes of stuff. We've got IV fluids if we need it. We can suture. We've got all the antibiotics and medications. We've got a lot of things to handle it there. So they have the emergency on the trail stuff. We have all the big stuff there to handle for them.
I imagine, a dog can get cut, stepping on something that's sharp.
Well,
dogs fighting each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've seen that a time or two.
Yeah,
that, and then they have all different cables and ropes and different things. Usually they're cable or cable line, just so the dogs don't chew through them.
Yeah.
But those can get wrapped around and cause some injuries sometimes. But,
yeah. We don't think about animal first aid nearly enough, in my opinion. There's lots and lots of resources out there to find good first aid kits for humans, but for animals, it's a little bit lacking. I've got my Safari Medic first aid kit here, and this is what I carry for hunting. But I wanted you to kind of crack into this thing and tell me what you think crosses over and would be good for treating animals for common injuries that hunters might run across as well.
Okay. Yeah, tourniquet. Is this for both of you, or is this for your dog?
This is just for me and my clients. This is what I carry when I'm hunting, but I'm kind of interested in like what in here I should also be considering as this is what I would use to treat my dog as well.
Okay. Tourniquet, I imagine you could use. Anatomy's a little different. It'd be a little trickier there, but it could be used as well.
So when Colonel Mustard broke his leg this June, I tourniqueted that, and I couldn't get it tight enough, so I ended up putting a rolled up towel on top of the artery and then putting the tourniquet over that so that I could create pressure with it. But
so he had an arterial bleed.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Good.
So I think, that's the first time I've used a tourniquet on an animal. I've used them on people before, and they're absolutely life-saving for people. And I think it was for him as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Pressure is huge
on
any of these injuries, even if it's not an arterial bleed. Get some pressure on it.
Well, you're trying to hold a dog and keep pressure on a wound.
And do stuff.
Right. Well, now I'm occupied, right? I can't even call for help.
Right.
So I needed to do something so that I could free up a hand to be able to start making phone calls and, get a hold of Double Arrow Vet Clinic and let them know, I needed some help.
Yeah, that's excellent. So what is this? Traumatic wound treatment.
So that's a injectable for
coag. That's awesome. We use that in surgery and dental procedures and stuff. The clot agent, that stuff is.
So talk through what it is a little bit.
I'm not sure on this one.
Yeah.
There's just clot activators. Is what we use at the clinic. You dump. I don't know if you inject or you dump this stuff on, then pressure applied, and it really helps slow us down those big bleeds.
Yep.
It's huge. Combine pads, yeah, you want some pads of some sort. Just, again, a lot of it's for the extra pressure.
Right.
We can soak up blood. I don't care about looking at blood. I just want things to stop.
Yep.
Emergency bandage, just a big bandage is good. Got scissors. That's always handy for cutting back clothes out of the way if you need to. Wrapped gauze, rolled gauze is good. Once you've got the bleeding controlled or to help control bleeding, those are always really handy.
Scissors are something that I didn't used to carry and started doing because if somebody's hurt and they've got a bunch of gear on, it can be hard just to get to the injury. If you're trying to deal with backpacks and stuff like that, you just need to cut it out of there and get down to the problem.
Yep. Yeah. Time is of the essence on a lot of these things. Absolutely.
You got a big client or something, like trying to get them undressed so that you can figure out where that arrow went that they just tripped and fell on. Yeah. That's the stuff that I think about, and, I don't want to waste time.
Yeah. And your chest seal. That's a big one for people especially. But I've seen it in dogs too. You get traumatic, stick to the chest or something. You're sucking air. You got to get it stopped.
Right.
I'll deal with infection later.
Yeah.
We got to get that stopped.
If you were to do that on a dog, do you keep one side of it open to be able to let the air out that's been introduced to that pleural space?
I'm usually just trying to stop it.
Okay.
If I can place a trach tube in, seal it, and inflate their lung, I'll let some out. But in a field, you're not going to do that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to stop more collapse
Gotcha.
at that stage. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is a great emergency pack. Most of my clients are wanting something that has, okay, I'm back in hunting somewhere, and I want to keep hunting if I can for minor stuff. So I see a lot more just general bandage, some antibiotics in there if we get a little infection going, just so they don't have to come out
right
sooner. This is trauma.
Yeah.
This is life, death.
Right.
Which it's a great kit you've got here. A lot of people have another kit. This is the one on you.
Sure.
When you're out at camp or somewhere, you're going to have a little more extensive.
Yeah.
I do a lot of backcountry horse and mule stuff. I've done seminars for Washington State Park, the Olympic State Park, or National Park up there.
Yeah.
Did a seminar for them, and we were talking about a lot of different problems you'll see in the backcountry. Colic and wounds is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So I put together a first aid kit for there. A lot of bandages and different medications for pain and inflammation and stuff like that. Like a lot of dog stuff, I'll have Rimadyl, which is an NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. You're bumped, you're bruised, you're sore. It can kind of keep you going. It's ibuprofen for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my vitamin I is high on my list.
Yeah. So what are some other things that you're carrying for horses and mules?
Horse and mules, some anti-inflammatory. So Banamine, Bute, are pain medications.
Yep.
Banamine mainly for the colic.
Okay.
They get abdominal pain. That can be life and death. Can be real serious. And if it's a twisted intestine or something in the backcountry, I'm out of luck.
Yeah.
But if it's a milder one, I can prevent it from getting more severe.
Okay.
And years ago I had a big wreck. We had an experienced guide I was with. He was my hunting buddy. We were back in this nasty place, blowdowns. Anyway, we were trying to cut this log out of the trail because my daughter and I had come through the week before, and the tree across the trail, we were stepping over it. Well, the ground was starting to slough off, and my daughter's horse, the trail sloughed off. The horse went down. He scrambled up. She got up and was like, "Dad, we need to cut that thing out of here next time." So my buddy and I are going in, and we stop. We're out there. We're handsawing this thing. My buddy's he's straddling the thing. He's bouncing it, trying to get it to bust loose. Thankfully, it didn't bust loose on him because we got it cut, and the 40 feet uphill starts sliding and rolling towards us. So we just book it back towards the horses. Well, the lead horse scares him. He snaps. He wasn't tied up very well. He snaps it. He runs uphill, knocks the other 5 off the trail, and it's steep, nasty. There's logs all over. It looks like pickup sticks down there, and my horses and mules are heads and feet flying.
God.
One of the most helpless feelings ever. Is that just praying, don't break a neck, don't break. I can't believe we didn't break a neck or a leg.
Yeah.
And if we get down there and my trail or my riding horse has about an 8-inch log goes sliding down and whacks him right in the tricep, and he just this big grunt groan, and there's a giant mule on top of him. So anyway, we go running down there. I'm cutting straps and things, and my pocket knife on me. Yep. That's another good emergency thing. So we get the mule off him. He gets up. About half of his tricep is just torn. Got a giant hole in him. But one of the other horses, my pack horse, which was a good riding horse, he had didn't know it at the time, but he'd suffered a diaphragmatic hernia. So much pressure on his abdomen, it blew his diaphragm out.
Wow.
But he was just kind of, didn't feel very good. We flopped over, rolled down another 3 or 4 times. But we got him out. We got everybody loaded back up, got him to camp, and he just wasn't feeling very good. So I had pain meds on board. I have all sorts of good stuff with me. I've got heavy duty sedative, kind of some sedative, heavy duty pain meds and stuff that most people can't carry. Or we do have more of those that are out in like gel form now. Dermosidan gel is a really good one. But we hunted that evening, had a huge, a good 350 bull, and at like 30 yards.
Oh.
He's standing behind the only tree there. And my buddy, he's a killer. He, it gets in range, it's usually dead.
Yeah.
And he said that he's just waiting for that thing. And, nose goes up, little wind swirl, takes off. He cow calls, stops him behind another tree at 40 yards or something like that. Then he was gone.
Yeah.
But, so great short little hunt. When we get back to camp, it's like, we better get out of here. This horse isn't looking right.
Right.
So we go boogieing down, and this horse starts trying to run over the top of me almost. He's just, really getting painful.
Just wants to get out of there.
He's getting colicky, yeah. So my buddy takes everything else. I just hop off and I jog down the trail or walk fast and get him down to the flat spot. And he ended up dying that night. I had pain meds on board, and I'm like, I had a gun. I was ready to archery hunting, but I always carry a pistol with me. That's another very important safety equipment for me when I'm with horses. He died that night. I was ready to put him down. It's like, it's hard. It is so hard. Yeah. He's one of my hunting, my buddy. Yeah. His horse was, and we were getting to the time where it was getting close, and he passed on his own.
Yeah.
But I kept him really good pain control for him anyway. I felt good. But then he's in this camp spot, but pretty common camp spot down there in the river. It's like, I can't leave him here.
Sure.
So we hook up a couple horses. We're trying to drag him. That's not working.
No.
So I did a field necropsy, did an autopsy on him, found out what was going on, but we had to quarter him up basically and get him out of the campground area there. So
I'm sorry.
It was a rough one, but I learned a lot, and I'm hoping other people can learn from it. So
So what are your takeaways that you could expect somebody who's going into the backcountry with horses but isn't a veterinarian? Like, what could they be doing?
Well, my biggest takeaway is I wish I could take a chainsaw in the wilderness.
Yeah. Well, with electric chainsaws, why not? It's so dumb.
It is. That's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even a gas, if you could do it, have a time frame of the year that's low fire.
Yeah.
Issue permits. Make some money on it. Have a trail crew that can run a chainsaw. Clear this stuff out. There's just not enough money and manpower to do it right now.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even when I was fighting fire, if it was in a wilderness area, we would be flying over the top of a fire in a helicopter, getting ready to rappel down into it and try and put out a wildfire in a wilderness without water.
Yeah.
And we'd have to get a hold of a ranger to get permission to bring a chainsaw. And sometimes they wouldn't, and we'd have to rappel with a crosscut. It's like, what are we doing? Like, I'm falling out of the sky from a helicopter using all the technology that we could possibly bring to bear, and then I have to use a crosscut saw to put this fire out?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. Absolutely.
It needs to be updated.
Yeah, I understand, the wilderness experience. I totally get that. But in these situations, we need to be able to access these wilderness.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So there's that.
Yeah.
There's that. Okay. What else? What are some other lessons learned?
Having stuff with you.
Yeah.
If I didn't have those pain meds,
right,
that horse would have been in misery.
Yeah.
I would have had to shoot him, but I was able to kind of feel it out a little more. And as a veterinarian, I was thankful I was a veterinarian in that position.
Yeah.
I knew, I had an idea what was going on, that he'd twisted something is what I thought. But either way, diaphragmatic hernia or twist, it wasn't good for him regardless. But I kept him comfortable.
Yeah.
And I I really watched him. I was up all night with him, watching things. And so, but yeah, having a basic first aid kit, like I still had my other horse that had half his tricep torn off, had a giant hole in his shoulder. So, skin flapping down while it was numb, I just took the knife and cut it off because I knew it wasn't going to survive.
Right.
And, gave him a bunch of pain meds as well and got started on some antibiotics for him. But he had 14 miles to pack out.
Yeah.
And we walked him, walked him out, and, there are hikers coming by. We're trying to hide that side of his shoulder. So,
sure.
I mean, people don't need to see that.
No, it doesn't do any good.
No. Yeah, a couple people kind of did and asked, and I'm a veterinarian. We got it under control, and got pain meds and stuff. But yeah, it's just bad situation that I was prepared as we could be for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big lesson is be really careful on those logs.
Yeah.
How many trees you cut out, everything stays. You just roll the middle chunk out. 40 feet of probably a 24-inch log coming at you.
Yeah.
When we were thinking about it later, my buddy is straddling this thing, bouncing it. If that had busted loose, hit him in the chest, and thrown him down the hill, it'd been a completely different story.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's not enough pain meds to fix that.
When you're 2 inches thick, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So but bandage stuff is huge. I've had a lot of, we go off trail a lot, or there used to be a trail that nobody clears, and we're stepping over stuff, and we get a lot of little stobs that are tearing legs up and stuff, and we try to avoid what we can, but it's inevitable where we go. Yeah, you're gonna have those.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Any other advice that you can offer to hunters or people that are going into the backcountry, or just people that want to do a better job of taking care of their pets?
The communication devices anymore are huge too.
Yep.
Just for help. Like I have a little InReach Mini now.
Yep.
If I had a question about something, I could text somebody that could call somebody, and I relay information that way. That's huge for people and pets as well.
Garmin actually has a new device called the Messenger that's little tiny, and it's the simplest of all of them. So it basically, you just keep using your regular cell phone, and it turns it into having an ability to send satellite text messages with location.
Wow.
And, the early days of like the Garmin InReach and the DeLorme and stuff like that was a little bit complicated. You had to have multiple apps, and it was confusing.
Yeah. It's
gotten very easy now, and so affordable. It's almost irresponsible not to have one.
Yeah. I still like being away from all that stuff in the backcountry, but as an emergency, or hey, we're running a little late, so people aren't sending the search and rescue out to look for me. It's like, I'm fine. Got an animal down. It's just going to take me a little longer to get out. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. And I've had, drop off in one spot, pick up in another. So I've got people coming with a horse trailer to pick me up somewhere else, and, coordinating that. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah. That's just a huge safety.
It's a good piece of advice.
Yeah. Even if you, if you stuff it in your pack and have it off most of the time, it's there if you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's huge.
Cool.
Otherwise having a good first aid kit, and there's, everybody online, there's a ton of different first aid kit options, and you kind of select for what you need. A lot of times I'll buy a first aid kit just for the case mainly, and I throw half the crap out and put more stuff in, kind of modify everything for what I feel like I need.
So if somebody went to their vet or went to you and said, hey, can you help me make a list of things that I should have in my first aid kit for X situation that I get myself into. Is that something that would be reasonable to ask a vet to help with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's helpful if you have something to start with. I can pop stuff off in my head, and a lot of times I'll forget one or two things. But if I have, somebody says, hey, here's a first aid kit I'm looking at, or here's my first aid kit, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'll rummage through, and I might, depend on where you're at. If you got it out of your truck, I'd put some, they're a client of mine, I can prescribe some antibiotics if we need it, and some pain meds and stuff, things that way. But bandage stuff and, treating wounds, we can get all that stuff together. But I like having some framework. It saves your vet a lot of time.
Yeah.
If you give them a basis to start with, cross a few things off, add a couple things for here.
Gotcha.
And parts of the country are going to be different too.
Sure.
I don't like hunting with rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
The snakes come out, I go up.
Yeah.
I run away from them.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything for snakes in my first aid kit.
For people that are in snake country, what should they have for their dogs?
One of the biggest ones for rattlesnakes is there's a rattlesnake vaccine out now.
Does it work good?
Yeah. I mean, there's still venom toxin going in there.
Yeah.
So it's going to cause some problems, but the systemic reaction is way lower. Yeah. I don't think I've had a snake bit dog die that's had the vaccine.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't think of any.
Good to know.
Yeah. Say they're still going to swell some.
Yeah.
Still going to hurt. You may deal with infection, but I see. One time we had, I think this day apart, we had two dogs. One was vaccinated, one was not. Both got bit. They were both bit in the leg. The one Labrador, I think it was, that wasn't vaccinated. His leg swelled up. I mean, 3 times the size of the other one.
Yeah.
The other one swelled some, but a couple of days, man, he was running around feeling great. The other one, it took a lot longer to recover.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How often do rattlesnake bites kill dogs?
Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because some of these are people floating the river.
Right.
I never see or hear anything.
Yeah.
On some of those. Yeah. A lot of it's the the amount of toxin, size of the dog, and location is what I've heard.
Yeah.
Anything on the face is way more likely to be fatal.
Right.
Yeah. And I've seen horses get bit too. Mm-hmm. Bit in the chin, looks like a hippopotamus head. Yeah. They can't eat or drink for a while. We've got to tube them, and I actually asked the company about can you use this vaccine in horses, and they said but it doesn't. It only lasts like 2 months at a time or a month at a time or something like that. It's like I'm hard pressed to convince people to vaccinate every month.
Yeah.
But said it would work reasonably well. Huh. But just
how long does it last in dogs?
A year. So around here we have a snake season. Usually in April, May is when the early ones start up. So I try to make sure people vaccinate their dogs right before that, so we have the highest protection during the time when they're going to be exposed.
I walked into a snake den in Montana last spring in this cliff and this buffalo jump where I was coyote hunting, and heard a snake and looked down, saw it, and started to back up, and then I heard another snake behind me, and
like in the minefield here.
Yeah, I was like, uh-oh. And the ground just started moving, and there was all these holes in this cliff, and just snakes coming in and out of everywhere. And I wanted to just start, rampaging on snakes, but I also didn't want to reach down to get a snake killing tool. It was awful. I am such a Sally around snakes. It's ridiculous.
That sounds like a nightmare to me.
Yeah. Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah. I was trail running down in Yosemite one time, and it was a timber rattler, so not too big of a deal, but they warned us that they were there. I'm jogging along. As I'm coming up on my stride, I see this thing. I swear I just levitated, for about 8 feet over that snake. Yeah. It's like, whoa. Then we had to go back and kind of check it out, but it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the adrenaline surge. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, that adrenaline hits pretty fast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Too funny.
I'm impressed with people that can deal with snakes every day. I'm not that guy.
I'm not one of them. No, I'm not one of them. My buddy Mike, he makes his living on pythons in Florida, and he's a little guy. He's catching snakes that are, bigger than he is by weight, and that one was like 17 and a half feet long.
Oh, jeez.
Bit him. He ended up having to take his snake's attack and tourniquet his arm. It's crazy. Yeah. And then he just goes out and catches more snakes the next day. Ugh.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's got a lot more courage.
Yeah, let's change the subject. I don't like snakes.
No, it's no fun. This is a good time of year. January is a good time of year.
It is, yeah.
For the nope ropes.
Yeah, I will sometimes venture down, Hell's Canyon this time of year. And, it doesn't have to be in a boat. I can be on ground this time of year. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Well, Randy, I really appreciate your time. It's nice to talk about this stuff with somebody who's got your experience as a hunter, all your professional experience with animals and as a veterinarian, and you've done thousands of necropsies, so exactly what it all looks like and where it is and how it works, and This is valuable information that people need to know. What's it called again? The line that
the mediastinum.
Mediastinum.
Mediastinum. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I wish we could have an animal in here with a bunch of guys around or something and go through it. I mean, that would be the best thing. It's like to show that there's no dead space.
Right.
It's not there.
There's not. And people can look that up. Like that information is readily available. You're a Google search away from being able to see the truth of this.
Yeah.
Or you can do a thought experiment and visualize how lungs must work.
Yeah.
But like we started talking about, it's really hard to convince somebody of something that they already believe.
Yeah.
You can show them, like in real time, they still can't understand.
Yeah. I don't think people want to admit that they didn't make a great shot.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to justify it.
Yeah.
So
that's probably part of it.
I mean, you can hit a spine or just above the spine, and you're hitting muscle and a little bone, and animal it stings a little bit, but they're running around doing fine. And it looked like a good shot, but it was a little high. Yeah, it was a lot too high for where you're aiming.
Yeah. So I measured on a bunch of elk this year, and from the top of the hump to the bottom of the spine is a full 10 inches.
Yeah.
So there's 10 inches of nothingville for your arrow to hit.
My arrow was a little high.
Yeah.
Right there.
You have a full third of that elk that is no good to you.
Yep. Yeah, you're mentioning guidelines. Yeah, a third up is kind of the vertical aiming location, not 50%, not halfway up.
Right.
You're pushing the higher end of it there.
Because the top third does you no good.
Right.
So if you come 1/3 of the way up, you're in the middle of the bottom 2/3. That's perfect.
That's top of heart.
Top of the heart.
Yep.
So follow that leg up from the elbow, come 1/3 of the way up the body, and it's going to be perfect. The other one that I'm trying to get people to reference on a little bit more, since the elbow can move, I don't want a moving reference point. The top of that hump over their shoulder does not move.
Right.
And it sits directly above the heart. And it's also the point that's the highest, before you get down to the actual kill zone. So it's a really good horizontal reference. Is the top of the hump on that shoulder on an elk is always going to be correct. But if you have any type of angle, you need to be thinking about the animal 3-dimensionally.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely
tough for people to do.
Yeah, it is. You need a lot of experience with that. Yeah, I really got that one now. I keep getting on the stories.
Yeah, go for it.
I was up in a tree stand hunting this elk. There's a 4 on one side and this clubby drop thing, a goofy looking thing. Anyway, he's I'm looking at him between my feet. He's sniffing the trees. I descent what I can, but we're not fooling him.
Right.
So he's sniffing the tree, and he's walking, directly away from me. I draw back, and he's, 2 yards, 3 yards, 5 yards, and I have spine. That's all I got. I'm like, I just need you to turn a little bit. So he turned a little to my left, so I snuck it. It was a tight window, but at 11 yards,
sure.
I can take that shot.
Yeah.
So I aimed just above his hip, a little to the left. I cut the flank, basically high flank, just behind his ribs, and the arrow was stopped in his heart.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it just barely got there.
Oh, but it stopped there.
Cool.
Yeah. But again, there's that 3D anatomy.
Yeah.
It's like I knew where I needed to be aiming, and it was more accurate than I thought I was.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting lesson because the arrow was buried.
Yeah.
And I think he went 50 yards. Still blows me away they can run that far with a hole in their heart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, any distance at all. I would not. I would just quit.
Yeah, I would be right there.
Yeah. If anything, I'd go closer to the pickup or something. If people want to follow along in your life, where can they see more of what you're up to?
Oh, I don't do a ton on social media, but I am on there, Randy Greenshields.
Okay. On Instagram.
Yeah.
So you'll find that at the link in the description, and then if they're ever in Northeast Oregon and have animal dramas, Double Arrow Vet Clinic, you can see Dr. Randy, or if you're in really good luck, you can see Dr. Brooke. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
About a decade ago, I launched my old aluminum drift boat onto a remote whitewater river and floated for a couple sunny spring days to meet some friends who were bear hunting downstream. While I made them dinner that evening, one of my buddies came over and showed me a SIG rangefinder. I'd heard of the company and I'd seen their gear while I was a Marine, but this was the first time I'd seen one of their products built for hunters. The range popped up instantly, and it continued to range everything I put the reticle on as I scanned across the canyon. I'd never seen anything like it on the civilian market, and frankly, not on the military one either. Since that day, SIG has come out with a long list of high-quality and innovative products for hunters, as well as continuing the same for military, law enforcement, and responsible citizens. They have some great training facilities located around the country, too. Check out all that SIG has to offer on their website, sigsauer.com. And this episode of the podcast is brought to you by SIG. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at Six Ranch Podcast or me at Six Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the Six Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.